Welcome back to Burbs' Final Digest. This week we're talking Westside Gunn's side B of his new album, Hitler Wears Hermes 8. It's a pretty long project for a side B. Not a lot of artists are still dropping B-sides, but definitely one that was worth paying attention to this time around. Without further ado, let's get right into what we thought of this project. Would I like to see Westside delve into new territory outside of kind of the formula that has kind of built for himself? I feel this way about rappers like Westside, basically everyone on Griselda, maybe like Rock Marciano, Pusha T to an extent. I feel like their skills as rappers are immaculate, some of the best ever, definitely atop the rap game currently. But in terms of their content, while maybe technically Pusha T, Westside, Benny, Conway, their music isn't as quote-unquote meaningful as a Tyler or maybe even a Kanye or maybe a Kendrick or a J. Cole, or while Griselda might not be as thematically dense as these artists, what they managed to do with their mission statement of putting out just really dope-ass rap, you have a goal in mind of what you want to execute and how you execute it, they fulfill it 100%. The best work they can put out for what they want to make, they do not come short of their goal. I think it's very impressive. I'm fine with how it is right now.
You know, I really do like Westside Gunn's territories. I like the lane. I think he's paving a way in. But I think we all have to kind of admit, I think we get a little bit on our high horse. We do Westside Gunn. It does get a little repetitive and stale, you know, with those loops and horns, stuff like that. Even though I love it, he can keep doing it and stuff, and I love hearing side A, side B, all this. I've loved all of his projects, but we have to admit, at some point, there is a little bit of repetitive nature, right? And it's kind of like the same things. But when you have great production and you have great people connection, stuff like that you'll be able to advance that either. So I'm not worried, and I think that this territory is a good territory, but there is parts where we have to admit, like, okay, this is, you know, kind of weak.
I will say this B side seemed to branch out a lot further than the A side.
Yeah.
Even just in the sense of having more interpolates in there, having voice samples of people just talking.
Yeah.
And in the middle of tracks even, and that wasn't something we saw in side A. It felt a little more creative. He felt like he did branch out a little more. Sure, those sample loops were still there.
Yeah.
But I think features alone, he seemed to branch out and allow more things to happen.
A lot more influences, I think.
Absolutely.
I think side A, you know, was a little bit more one-dimensional.
I'm happy with where Westside Gunn is at. He has perfected his craft, to be completely honest. Yeah. And that's why I think he can stay consistent in that, and people are going to be happy. Do I want to see him go a little more out there, shed a little more creativity? Because we all know Westside Gunn is capable of doing whatever he wants. Why not? Just make a random album that you want to do new things on.
Yeah. He said he's only going to make one or two more.
Really?
That's what he said. He said in a culture article. So
maybe,
we'll see. I mean,
maybe in those last two.
Yeah, I think he's becoming more of an artist rather than just a rapper anymore. I don't think it'll be like his last album. It might just be his last album rapping. Like he'll just be behind the scenes and stuff. He's a creative genius. So
okay, Westside Gunn's fascinating to me because I love his work with Derringer, his work with the Alchemist, all of those guys that kind of have like the Sopranos themed instrumentals that he just absolutely belts over, right? But hearing him on a Gangsta Girls project, that's tantalizing. I love to see his version of a Call Me If You Get Lost, or even if you're reading this, it's too late type of project where he is specifically on trap instrumentals. I like to see what he would do to a track versus what Lil Baby would do to a track. Like if he started getting more of those features rather than just the Mac Homies and Benny the Butchers and other Griselda guys. So yeah, Gangsta Girls. I'd like to see a Gangsta Girls tape from Westside.
Who would I like to see Westside executive produce an album for now? I kind of mentioned him earlier, but I think Pusha T would be crazy over some Westside beat choices, decision-making that goes a little bit deeper than just the actual production of it. I think Pusha is one of those really hard-ass rappers that would fit really well with an executive-produced project from Westside.
I would love to see Westside Gunn executively produce an Earl Sweatshirt album. I
was thinking the exact same thing.
I think the sample loops, first of all, are perfect for Earl Sweatshirt to thrive on. And even with the Alchemist production, and you see how well Westside Gunn sits on that, Westside Gunn can do, I mean, he's below the Alchemist, but he has the capability of being one of the top executive producers in the world. And I think Earl Sweatshirt would just thrive with Westside Gunn.
Being executive producer, you have good choice and you have good connections, right?
Right.
Westside Gunn has so many, and Earl was what I was thinking of too. I think he'd be really interesting because he's also part of that like genre subgenre. Like Griselda has her own lane, and then
Right.
it's like Navy Blue, Mike,
Right.
Alchemist, like, and they kind of bleed into each other's styles. So I think that would really be an interesting thing, and I think that Earl would have an interesting time on it. Another person I'd like to see is the rapper Sideshow. I think he'd be a really cool guy.
That would be
Or
really cool.
Arm & Hammer, also kind of bleeding into that lane. I think Arm & Hammer with Westside Gunn in. Obviously, if I could choose a Griselda member, it'd be Conway, though. Like, Conway in executive production for Westside Gunn would be great. But if I had to, like, kind of go out of the way, not go out of the way of Griselda, Makami, Stove God, Cooks, go to, like, Navy Blue, Mike,
Right.
Arm & Hammer, any of those guys, Earl, all those guys would, I think, have a very interesting appeal to it. I think they would be able to float on those beats a lot better, too.
I think you're absolutely right.
As far as Westside being an executive producer, I don't know if there's an artist in particular that I would want to see him work with, because I think he's just found such a great niche with Benny, with Conway, with Matt Conley, all those guys, Boldy too. But I think that he has the opportunity to revive some rappers' careers and put them in strictly rapping scenarios. So I'd like to see what he could do with Chance the Rapper, because Chance is somebody that's fallen off so fucking hard the last few years. Somebody I truly admired and loved when Acid Rap dropped. Loved 10 Days Still, all that kind of stuff. But ever since then, it's just been a slow, cascading fall that dropped off so hard that it's almost intolerable, right? Like when we see him, we think of him as a meme. But I think that Westside could revive him, because Westside has that high-pitched, almost eerie voice as well. And I think that he could bring the most out of Chance.
And not to continue to draw on the Pusha comparison again, but now after what Pusha's been able to achieve in his career, Grammy nomination for Daytona, he's definitely an artist that has stayed in his own lane and not compromised his own sound or what he wants to make with his music, and still gotten mainstream appeal. Part of that obviously is the Kanye cosign. I don't think Westside, I don't think anyone on Griselda really wants to lose their own ownership and their own agency over their music to expand their reach as artists, as a collective. We're not necessarily living in a music landscape in which it's a meritocratic system. We don't really have a system in which artists are just given respect because their music is great. And that's unfortunate that that's the case. But if Westside continues on this path, I don't really see him coming into the forefront of what hip hop looks like right now. I don't think he's going to be one of the names that the average hip-hop listener is referring to when they say top rappers in the game right now. That being said, I don't think that's what he cares about. So if he doesn't care about that, that's even better. And he's just putting out music alongside the rest of Griselda that he really thinks is dope as hell.
Do I think Westside Gunn will reach the mainstream? We can see with different ways he's going. He's getting really into the fashion game, and he has Virgil Abloh even do the cover for Pray for Paris. Like, he's really big in another scene, and he's really dancing in a lot of different scenes, like executive producer Makami, and he's kind of like going in different ways. But I feel like the sad reality of it is I think he likes to stay in the underground, and I don't think his type of music will ever be in that mainstream area, because it's just not the type of rap that we listen to right now, like Kid Laroi, all these guys, stuff like that. That is not the same audience of Westside Gunn. They'd probably get bored and repetitive over it. Even though I think it is fantastic music, and I know you do and stuff, and we collectively at Burbs think it is, it's just sadly I don't think he ever will be, but I think that's totally fine. I think Westside Gunn and all those guys don't even want a mainstream crowd and stuff. Like, I don't think they want it, and I think they're perfectly content where they are, and as long as they build this cult following of just great fans, I think that's the community they're going for.
Right, and it's not like they're not getting the features that they deserve. I mean, looking at this album alone, you see production from The Alchemist, Madlib, Jay Electronica, production
Tyler, the
from
Creator,
Jay Versace. They're still getting everything they deserve.
Yeah.
They're still an insanely well-accomplished group. It's just sad that so many people are ignorant to them. And I was ignorant to their music probably 3 months ago until I heard Makami's Pray for Paris. I wasn't gigantic. Not that Makami's in Griselda, but I wasn't a giant.
Into that scene, you know,
Right,
like that
exactly.
type of genre and
Right.
stuff. And
I hope one day they will be a household name. But the way they even run their marketing and everything, they kind of like being that low-key group.
Yeah.
If you look at Makami as an example, that man sells his records and everything for hundreds of thousands of dollars.
people will buy them just for having the limited edition. So
Exactly.
I think they kind of like that style.
I think
embrace
they
it.
grow off it.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
definitely.
I think side B, I honestly probably enjoyed more than side A, because some of these songs are just like, it's just a very relentless project, and there's just so many things on this album, and I don't even think I could pick out a specific point, but the way this album like just continues to surprise me on every single listen. The production's crazy. There's a lot of quotables across this project, which is, you know, a classic Griselda. I think this side B is one of the better projects that Westside's put out, although all of the stuff that he puts out is hard as hell.
You know, I mean, I think it's obvious. It's side B. Side B is one of the best projects of the year so far.
Well.
Even at a lengthy 20 songs, it did not feel repetitive, feel stale. A lot of really good experimentation on it. I mean, Julia Lang, where she has that model singing that for that stage,
So
then he goes
gas.
right into it, cooking
The gun
in.
clicking
Oh,
into
dude, it's so
so
good. It
nasty.
explodes. That's right. And then we got Alchemist production with Ostertag, which is just a phenomenal. Like, then it gets like sample driven. It's kind of like a very eerie beat, and I love that. We have Richie's. Which is
my favorite song on the B side.
I mean, that
Easily.
Mad Lib's production was phenomenal.
So
that sample
gross.
was one of the most beautiful sample, just I've heard. And Westside Gunn absolutely murders it. And I love when he says, "Your ribs are touching." And I think that's like one of the funniest things. Is I've never thought of it like being like that's like a sign of like superiority.
Right.
But your ribs are touching. Like everyone knows what you mean, but you're like, that's a guy. I love that
That's
way of
clean.
going. And I feel like how Westside Gunn does that. I mean, there's a lot of different artistic choices that are just a lot elevated, better. Features, Makami's features on this are a lot better. Conway and Benny's song on Hell on Earth Part 2, it's a lot better. I think it's side B. So, I mean, I just can't, there's so many good things.
You pretty much highlighted everything I wanted to say. Everything seemed completed. People actually did what they were supposed to do. It felt like on side A, people were stopping. They weren't reaching their full potential on their songs. He wasn't giving as much creative freedom to exactly like Makami. I believe that especially. I think Makami actually spread his wings and was his actual self on this entire side.
Yeah.
Production alone, like you said, Mad Lib, Alchemist, I think the entirety of side B, I think trumps side A by a landslide.
Yeah, and I think that if I were to create, even though these are both technically mixtapes, I would say side A is a mixtape where you have 1 or 2, 3, 4 songs you just kind of throw in. And side B is an album. Side B is an album. And I know that they're considering mixtape, but that's, I feel like, the best way to describe it. I think it was like, I'll put a few good songs side A, but with the back half, this side B, I mean, this is like the magnum opus of this. And oh my, the production's phenomenal. Conductor Williams is all over it, which is just great. I just love everything about it. I mean, there's so many good songs in here. And I think I love some of the song names too. I forgot to mention that. The Fly Who Couldn't Fly Straight is hilarious, you know. Ostertag, which I think is about Greg Ostertag, which is the '90s basketball player, which is funny as hell. Like, and Julia Lang. Like, I think there's a lot of just really cool names in this one. I think side B trumps side A by far.
I agree.